Is something huge happening in 2025? Factories are quietly leaving the US for Canada. Here's why. Have you noticed something massive happening in 2025, yet it's barely on the radar? America's once mighty factories are quietly packing up and heading to a surprising new destination, Canada. But why are they leaving? As labor costs in the US skyrocket and industrial stability crumbles, Canada has become the go-to haven, offering tax breaks, a stable economy, and a highly skilled workforce. Is this just a temporary move? Or are we witnessing the beginning of a major shift in the global manufacturing landscape? In this video, we'll uncover the 10 US states most affected by the factory exodus to Canada. Which state is bearing the brunt of this change? Stay tuned as we explore the surprising truth. Number 10. Pennsylvania. Once the heart of US industry, now facing an economic exodus, Pennsylvania, a state that was once a proud symbol of American manufacturing, is now grappling with a serious recession. From Pittsburgh to Allentown, factories that used to produce the precision components at the core of US industry are quietly closing and relocating, most notably to Canada. A glaring example, a robotics parts manufacturer in Erie that shut down its plant in March, only to open a new facility near Toronto just 2 months later. So why the move north? It's all about Canada's attractive tax policies, streamlined permitting, and strong government subsidies for green manufacturing. In stark contrast, Pennsylvania's burdensome bureaucracy and sky-high compliance costs are suffocating small and medium businesses, making survival nearly impossible. In the first half of 2025 alone, 7,000 manufacturing jobs have been lost in the state, with a significant portion now relocated to Canada. But this isn't just about factory closures. It's about lost innovation. Once thriving hubs of technology and research are now shifting to Canada, driven by strong incentives for electric vehicle manufacturing and AI hardware. Even industrial towns like Scranton and Reading are feeling the effects of this seismic shift. But the real tragedy isn't in the numbers. It's in the faces of 3 generations of factory workers standing in front of locked gates, realizing their once promised future is slipping away. The dream they worked for is no longer being built in Pennsylvania, but rather across the border in a land that's becoming more attractive thanks to a flood of investments. President Trump once vowed to bring jobs back to America, but as the manufacturing sector fades away due to domestic policies, will those promises ever be realized? What do you think? Have US policy decisions truly helped the manufacturing sector, or are they pushing jobs and innovation out of the country? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Wisconsin. From dairy capital to manufacturing crisis. Is Canada stealing America's jobs? When you think of Wisconsin, you probably picture dairy farms and cheese. But the state's true economic backbone has always been manufacturing. From heavy machinery to automotive parts, Wisconsin has long been a key player in America's industrial belt. However, in early 2025, the state was rocked by a shocking blow. Several electric vehicle part suppliers decided to move their entire operations across the border to Ontario and Quebec. One major example, a Milwaukee-based company specializing in electric drive modules moved its production to Windsor, Canada. Why? The answer is simple: lower electricity costs and Canada's generous clean energy incentives. Longtime manufacturing hubs like Green Bay and Racine, once the heart of the Midwest supply chain, are now seeing their industries restructure with new supply routes running through Canada. The results are already clear. In the first quarter of 2025, Wisconsin reported a 2% drop in manufacturing jobs, the sharpest decline in the Midwest. Meanwhile, Ontario's industrial parks are thriving, with booming factories and new orders, many of which used to be Wisconsin's. Local communities are now raising alarms. If federal intervention doesn't come soon, Wisconsin could become a transit point in the North American supply chain, where goods pass through the state, but the true value flows north to Canada. This shift not only threatens Wisconsin's local economy, but also forces us to ask, is American manufacturing losing its competitive edge? Will Washington take the steps necessary to reverse this trend? What policies are needed to keep key industries in the US instead of losing them to Canada? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more updates on the evolving economic landscape in America. Number 8. Illinois, from Midwest powerhouse to manufacturing crisis. Why are jobs heading to Canada? Illinois, once a shining beacon of Midwestern industrial power, is now facing a quiet crisis that's slipping under the radar. In the first half of 2025 alone, 9,000 manufacturing jobs have vanished. But what's even more shocking is that these jobs aren't going to Asia. They're moving straight to Canada. A major machinery manufacturer in Rockford recently announced that it would relocate its entire factory to Ontario. The reason behind this? Simple: lower corporate taxes, quicker permitting, and much more attractive green manufacturing incentives in Canada. And this isn't just happening with big corporations. Packaging and bottling companies in the suburbs of Chicago are also downsizing and shifting their operations north. Even Illinois' legendary food processing industry is feeling the heat. A well-known frozen food brand, which has been a staple in Peoria for over 40 years, just opened a new facility in Nova Scotia, creating 500 new jobs in Canada. As Illinois loses these critical jobs, it's facing the harsh reality. It can no longer compete in the North American manufacturing arena. But this issue isn't just about economic reports or job numbers. The real pain is felt in small towns where 3 generations of families worked in the same factories, now staring at empty gates as production moves across the border. Illinois isn't just losing jobs. It's losing its bargaining power in the highly competitive world of North American manufacturing. The Trump administration has stressed that tax and regulatory reforms are needed for U.S. states to stay competitive. But the question remains, will the federal government take action to level the playing field, or will Illinois continue to see its industrial heartland slip away to Canada? 7. California, from tech hub to manufacturing exodus. Why are jobs fleeing to Canada? California, once the global symbol of technological innovation, home to the iconic Silicon Valley, is quietly losing its manufacturing heart. In 2022 alone, the state saw several major manufacturing companies pack up and move their operations to Canada, and now rumors are swirling about which companies will be next. One major example: a startup producing electric vehicle batteries in San Jose recently moved its entire operation to Quebec. The reason? Lower energy costs and more relaxed environmental regulations in Canada. Meanwhile, California's sky-high labor costs and increasingly tough regulations are making it harder for businesses to survive. Did you know that electricity prices in California are nearly double those in many parts of Canada? This has forced companies to make the tough call to leave. In Southern California, aerospace suppliers in Orange County are relocating production to Alberta and Manitoba, while mid-sized tech companies in Fresno and Bakersfield are eyeing Canada for its sustainable manufacturing incentives. In total, California lost more than 12,000 manufacturing jobs in the first half of 2025 alone. But the real sting? These weren't just any jobs. High-skill, high-wage positions that once supported entire communities are vanishing. The ripple effect is already hitting. Local suppliers are seeing a drop in revenue. Logistics companies are receiving fewer orders, and even vocational schools are experiencing fewer students. Despite being the largest economy in the U.S., California is now facing the slow erosion of its most competitive advantage: high-tech manufacturing. 6. Georgia, from manufacturing boom to quiet exodus. Why are companies moving to Canada? Georgia, once a rising star on the U.S. manufacturing map, built its reputation with Atlanta as a bustling logistics hub, Savannah as a crucial export gateway, and technology factories sprouting up across its suburbs. It seemed like Georgia had cracked the code for economic growth. However, by 2025, that picture began to shift dramatically. From electric vehicle battery factories to aerospace parts and even food processing, an increasing number of companies in Georgia are scaling back or shutting down entirely. But the reason for their shift to Canada isn't just about cost savings, it's about a strategic relocation. By early 2025, Georgia had lost over 8,000 manufacturing jobs, with nearly half of those moving to Ontario and British Columbia. One key example is a major electric vehicle manufacturer that had planned a massive facility near Savannah, but unexpectedly halted the project and signed a new deal in Canada. Why Canada? The answer lies in clean energy subsidies, a quick permitting process, and a business-friendly environment that Georgia can no longer compete with. Logistics centers around Augusta have also seen a sharp decline in shipping volumes, as US-Canada trade routes are shifting northward, altering the flow of critical supply chains. But it's not just about cost, it's about long-term vision. Company leaders are now prioritizing policy stability, innovation support, and workforce training, areas where Canada clearly leads. Georgia isn't just losing jobs, it's losing momentum. Communities once thriving on manufacturing are now facing budget shortages for schools, a cooling housing market, and a mass exodus of young people seeking opportunities elsewhere. While Georgia's growth story isn't over, it's certainly being rewritten as Canadian policies and investments take the lead. Number 5. Ohio. From manufacturing powerhouse to quiet exodus. Why are factories moving to Canada? Ohio, once a symbol of resilience in the heart of American industry, has undergone a painful transformation. Known for steel, rubber, and iconic American car manufacturing, Ohio was once the birthplace of industrial strength. But by 2025, Ohio's manufacturing momentum began to significantly decline. Not because of declining demand, but because demand has quietly shifted north. As companies seek a more business-friendly environment in Canada. By June 2025, 10,000 manufacturing jobs had disappeared from Ohio without a single protest. The factories didn't close, they moved, relocated to Ontario and Quebec. One of the most shocking moves came from a Cleveland-based auto parts supplier that decided to shift its entire operation to Quebec. The reason? Clean energy incentives, government-backed infrastructure, and a far more business-friendly environment in Canada. In Akron, a plastics manufacturer shut down 2 plants and partnered with a Canadian company. The CEO bluntly stated, "We can't survive here anymore." For Ohio, this is more than just an economic loss. It's the loss of identity for a state that prided itself on its industrial heritage. Every factory that leaves Ohio takes with it a piece of its future in North American manufacturing. Small towns like Lima and Mansfield are already feeling the effects of this shift. When a factory closes, it's not just that factory, it's the entire supply chain that disappears. Transportation companies close down, gas stations go desolate, trade schools see fewer students, even local diners and daycares are struggling. This is a heartbreaking reality. Canada isn't just stealing jobs, it's competing and winning. Ohio, despite its proud industrial legacy, is now stuck on the sidelines, watching an industry that once defined it transform without any chance to catch up. 4. New York, from financial hub to manufacturing loss. Why are jobs fleeing to Canada? When most people think of New York, they picture Wall Street and the bright lights of Broadway. But beneath this glamorous facade, the state has quietly been home to a robust manufacturing network, spanning from electronics and processed foods to green technology. However, that manufacturing base is now shrinking. Over the past year, more than 10,000 manufacturing jobs have disappeared, with cities like Buffalo, Rochester, and Syracuse feeling the impact the most. A growing number of electronics companies, processed food manufacturers, and green energy startups are relocating to Canada. One of the most shocking moves was a solar panel manufacturer in Albany that decided to move its entire production to Ontario, drawn by generous R&D incentives and easier access to the European market. Once a thriving industrial corridor, Western New York is now a mere shadow of its former self. While state authorities remain focused on finance and real estate, the manufacturing sector continues to decline, largely unnoticed. High corporate taxes, crumbling infrastructure, and expensive energy costs are forcing companies to reconsider their futures, with many opting to relocate to Canada. Even iconic food brands aren't immune to this shift. A well-known soup and sauce manufacturer recently moved a third of its operations from northern New York to Montreal, resulting in the loss of hundreds of union jobs. For communities already struggling with store closures and population decline, the collapse of the manufacturing sector is a devastating blow. This loss didn't come with much fanfare, but the damage is undeniable. Job opportunities, economic stability, and the future growth of the region seem to be slipping away from New York's horizon as Canada steadily takes the lead. Number 3. Texas. From industrial powerhouse to quiet exodus. Why are manufacturing jobs moving north? Texas, long proud of its Lone Star reputation as a self-sufficient industrial powerhouse, has been home to everything from oil and gas to industrial equipment. It was once the epitome of American industrial strength. But by 2025, even Texas couldn't escape the silent shift north. Key industries, including auto parts, electronics, and industrial machinery, are facing sharp declines, partly due to evolving economic pressures and changing policies. In less than 12 months, over 9,200 manufacturing jobs have disappeared, marking a turning point in Texas's industrial economy. A prime example, a robotics company based in Dallas, once a symbol of Texas innovation, recently broke ground on a new facility in Toronto. The reason for the move is clear: tax incentives for skilled immigrant labor, a strategic location near Canadian and European markets, and Canada's stable political environment. Meanwhile, border cities like Laredo and El Paso are feeling the pressure, with export volumes dropping as the supply chain shifts north. This shift underscores the growing divide between Texas and Canada. Texas faces critical challenges: an unstable power grid, soaring property insurance costs, and other risk factors that make long-term investment uncertain. Meanwhile, Canada offers a more favorable manufacturing environment. Faster approval processes, clear climate strategies, and political stability that attract companies looking for consistency. What's truly alarming to local leaders is that jobs are disappearing quietly, with no signs of recovery. The entire supply chain, once the backbone of Texas's economy, is being restructured and relocated. Texas is no longer the industrial titan it once was. If the state fails to adapt to these changing trends, it risks losing its long-standing identity as an industrial hub and may find itself facing a new future as the industries it once built slowly fade away. 2. Indiana. From manufacturing stronghold to quiet decline. Why are jobs moving to Canada? Indiana, though often overshadowed by its neighboring state Michigan, has long been a silent powerhouse in the manufacturing industry. Known for having the highest industrial labor rate in the country, Indiana has specialized in producing auto parts, heavy machinery, and electronic components, contributing significantly to the U.S. economy. But by 2025, the state's manufacturing dominance began to slowly erode. In the past 12 months, Indiana has lost over 11,500 manufacturing jobs, mainly from auto parts suppliers in Fort Wayne and Evansville. The twist? These companies didn't shut down. They shifted their operations to Ontario and Quebec. A prime example, a truck chassis manufacturer, once a key partner for the major Detroit automakers, announced it would cut production in Indiana by 70% while doubling its investment in Windsor, Canada. The move isn't just about tax incentives. It's also about the $100 million in subsidies from the Canadian government, including labor support, infrastructure upgrades, and logistics improvements. Canada is also offering affordable clean energy, something Indiana simply can't match. The situation is growing increasingly dire in smaller towns like Cuco and Lafayette. Empty parking lots, coffee shops closing early, and residents grappling with the tough question: should they move to Ontario in search of better opportunities? One of the core reasons Indiana can't maintain its growth is its failing technical training system. Once hailed as a model, this system now lacks the skills needed for green manufacturing and modern automation, leaving Indiana far behind Canada in innovation. Indiana's decline isn't due to a lack of determination. It's because it failed to adapt to the rapidly changing global manufacturing landscape. Canada's strong policies, modern infrastructure, and forward-thinking vision have given it the upper hand. As a result, Indiana faces a harsh truth. It is no longer the shining example of manufacturing success it once was, and the opportunities it once offered are slipping away. 1. Michigan, from the heart of American automotive to quiet decline. Is Canada stealing jobs? When you think of the birthplace of the American automotive industry, you can't ignore Michigan. Known as the Motor City, Detroit is where the first cars were built and where titans like General Motors and Chrysler once dominated the industry, creating millions of jobs. This is where Henry Ford revolutionized the automotive world and laid the foundation for a global empire. But by 2025, Michigan isn't facing a dramatic collapse like 2008. It's witnessing the quiet withdrawal of factories, the closing of assembly lines, and the disappearance of thousands of jobs without anyone to replace them. In just 18 months, Michigan has lost over 15,000 jobs in the automotive and supporting industries, the highest number since the 2009 recession. What's different this time? Companies aren't just downsizing, they're moving operations entirely to Canada. This isn't due to a lack of skilled workers. In fact, Michigan's workforce remains one of the best, but because of rising operating costs, complicated environmental regulations, and a lack of long-term policies to support the transition to electric vehicles. While Michigan struggles with these issues, Canada is offering an ideal environment for auto companies. The Ontario government provides generous green transition programs, clean energy subsidies, tax cuts, and low-interest loans to build battery factories. Major players like Stellantis, Magna, and suppliers to Tesla are investing heavily in Ontario, where training programs and flexible industrial policies are tailored to the auto industry's needs. Despite Michigan's efforts to implement federal policies to retain manufacturing, it's clear that production costs are rising, and the supply chain is now shifting north-south, rather than the traditional east-west. Flint, once a booming truck manufacturing hub, now stands as a ghost town with empty parking lots and overgrown weeds. Families that once depended on the auto industry are now facing unemployment or being forced into temporary jobs, with many leaving the state for better opportunities. Michigan, the once thriving heart of American automotive, is now facing a monumental shift in its industrial identity. The question remains, can Michigan reclaim its dominance, or will it continue to fall behind as jobs and opportunities move north to Canada? What do you think about these changes? Share your thoughts in the comments below. This is a conversation where every perspective matters. If you want to keep up with these major shifts, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Did you know that current tariffs are at their highest level since 1933, while food prices have skyrocketed by up to 38% per month? Pause for a moment and listen carefully, because the information I'm about to share could save your family thousands of dollars as the economic downturn accelerates. Many economists are warning that a stagflation scenario is approaching, where prices soar while jobs vanish. And can you guess what will be hit first? Your everyday grocery bills. Today, I'm going to reveal 6 essential foods you should stockpile before the economy's dominoes start falling. Trust me, the 4th item will truly surprise you. It could feed an entire family for months if things get really tough. This isn't fear-mongering, it's reality, folks. Before we dive in, let me share an experience that shocked me just last week. I was talking with a grocery store manager in Texas, can't remember which chain, but what he revealed was astonishing. Wholesale costs have jumped 22% in just the past 2 months. 22% in 60 days. And that's before tariffs even fully take effect. Most people don't understand this. According to the Yale Budget Lab, these tariffs could push overall inflation up by 2.9%. But some individual food items could rise by 64% or more. We're talking about a systemic decline in affordability, and your pantry is currently on high alert. Pay close attention because I'll show you exactly what to buy, how much to stockpile, and why each item will become gold when the economic storm hits. And finally, I'll share a storage tip that most preppers completely overlook. And starting with the foundation of survival, let's talk about rice and alternative grains. The #1 food sources you absolutely cannot ignore. I know what you're thinking. Rice? That's basic, everyone already knows that. But hold on. What I've just uncovered about the current grain market will truly shock you. Here's a little-known fact. The United Nations has just warned that global wheat and corn supplies will start running low next year. And Ukraine, which provides 30% of the world's wheat, is still facing severe production disruptions. But here's the key point. While everyone is focused on wheat, the smart ones are quietly stockpiling grains that actually last longer and are cheaper. Just last week, I spent 3 hours talking with agricultural economists, and they all pointed out a truth you need to know right now. White rice can be stored for up to 30 years if kept properly. 30 years. Compared to fresh foods that last only a few days, rice is the ultimate insurance against economic collapse that you can own. Here's the interesting part. Rice prices have risen 31% compared to last year, but alternative grains like quinoa or barley are still largely overlooked. Yesterday, I checked 5 stores, and quinoa was actually cheaper per pound than it was 6 months ago. Why? Because most people don't realize that quinoa contains complete protein, including all 9 essential amino acids your body needs. Here's a small tip my neighbor used to save $200 in just 1 month. Try buying bulgur wheat instead of rice. It cooks faster, uses less fuel, and offers higher nutritional value. When energy costs skyrocket during a recession, this matters far more than you might think. So what's the action plan? Buy 20 pounds, 9 kgs of white rice per person in your household, plus 10 pounds, 4.5 kilos of alternative grains, and store them in airtight food-grade containers. Here's a tip most people miss. Toss a few bay leaves into each container. They naturally repel insects without any chemicals. From an economic standpoint, rice is truly an inflation-proof reserve. At current prices, you're spending only about 6 cents per serving. Even if food prices double, which many experts predict will happen, you'll still be eating cheaply while everyone else pays multiples more. Food supply. Section 2. Canned protein. Pay attention, because what I'm about to reveal about the protein crisis could change the way you shop forever. Did you know that ground beef is now $5.98 a pound, up 49% since 2020, and is projected to rise another 8.8% by 2025? But that number doesn't tell the whole story. Last week, I spoke with a supply chain manager at a major supermarket, and he revealed something that made my jaw drop. Fresh meat is becoming a luxury item faster than you might think. The reason? More than 62% of the livestock herd is now in areas suffering from severe drought, and the cost of maintaining it has tripled. While everyone is panicking about fresh meat prices, smart preppers are one step ahead. Canned protein. I did the math. 32 grams of protein from canned chicken costs just $2.89, while the same amount of protein from fresh chicken is almost double. Plus, canned protein can last up to 5 years without refrigeration, giving you peace of mind in any situation. A new study from Cornell also found that modern canned protein retains up to 97% of its nutritional value after 2 years of storage. In fact, I opened a can of 2-year-old salmon last month, and it still tasted great. Even better than many fresh fish I bought recently. But the little-known secret is that the global food infrastructure is facing a cybersecurity threat. A ransomware attack on JBS, the world's largest meat packer, cost the company $11 million just to get back up and running. Experts predict more attacks as economic pressures mount, and when that happens, the fresh meat supply chain could collapse overnight. This isn't a hypothetical warning. It's a real risk that you need to prepare for today. The canned protein strategy I learned from a former military logistics expert is simple but effective. Canned chicken, a versatile protein that can be served hot or cold. Canned tuna, rich in omega-3s, essential for brain function during stressful times. Canned salmon, a nutritionally superior option when fresh fish is expensive. Are you ready to protect your family from the coming storm of fresh meat prices? This isn't a wild prediction. It's facts based on data, research, and little-known behind-the-scenes information. Smart preparation today will help you feel secure and not be caught off guard by unpredictable market fluctuations. Canned beef, the savior of meat cravings. Did you know that with just 1 can of canned beef, you can still satisfy your meat cravings like a steak that costs over $120 if bought fresh? This is why this little trick has saved my neighbor hundreds of dollars every year. Don't waste your money on anything else. Focus on canned protein and water. And water, don't underestimate it. It's not just for drinking. It contains valuable minerals that can be used to cook rice, pasta, or make other basic dishes. I learned this tip from a survival nutritionist who helped with Hurricane Katrina relief, and trust me, this knowledge is extremely useful when things get scarce. But here's the fact that most people overlook. Protein is the first food to skyrocket during an economic crisis. Why? Because raising livestock requires a huge amount of input: grain, water, transportation fuel, refrigeration. When those costs skyrocket, meat prices skyrocket. During Argentina's economic crisis in 2001, meat prices rose 400%, while canned protein remained relatively stable, becoming a lifeline for those who prepared. Last weekend, I visited 5 different stores, and canned chicken was still available for under $3 a can. But be careful. Some stores have limited each customer to 6 cans, suggesting that smart preppers are quietly building up their protein insurance before supplies tighten. And here's a quick but crucial storage tip. Store canned protein in a cool, dry place below 75 degrees, 24 degrees. It will stay at its optimal quality for years, and frankly, it tastes better than fresh meat that's been sitting in a truck for weeks. When a crisis hits, these cans of protein not only feed you, but become living gold, ready to deal with any situation. Third, food supply. Cooking oils and fats. Now let's talk about the cooking oil crisis that is flooding store shelves. Trust me, the severity is far beyond what most people realize. In the past month alone, sunflower oil prices have increased by 48.5% compared to the same period last year. Last week, I spoke to a restaurant owner in Chicago. His cooking oil costs have tripled in just 2 months. Triple. This is not normal inflation. This is a real economic shock. The reason? Indonesia has just banned palm oil exports to control domestic prices. Meanwhile, Ukraine, the main supplier of sunflower oil to Europe, is still experiencing serious production disruptions. But what really got me thinking is this. As global cooking oil supplies tighten, cooking oil is about to become more valuable than gold. And this will directly affect the cost of living for every family. A food industry insider secretly showed me an internal report predicting a vegetable oil shortage by 2025. When I heard this, it really hit me that we were facing a perfect storm. Biofuel demand was devouring soybean oil faster than food companies could supply it, while extreme weather had destroyed 23% of the main oil crop and transportation costs had skyrocketed by 280%. Most people mistakenly think that all cooking oils are the same in terms of shelf life, but they are not. I spent 6 months testing different oils and the results were astounding. Refined coconut oil was a lifesaver. It can last up to 5 years without refrigeration, solidifies at room temperature, does not leak, and is easy to store. Avocado oil has natural antibacterial properties, which are especially important when healthcare costs are skyrocketing. And with a high smoke point of 520 degrees, 270 degrees, you can fry, grill, sauté, and cook all with just one oil, saving you money and kitchen space. When you look at these bottles, you realize that they are not just cooking ingredients, but also survival tools, protecting your health and energy during difficult times. But the truth that really shocked me is that cooking oil is no longer just food. Energy companies are increasing biofuel capacity by 500% using vegetable oils, which means food manufacturers are competing directly with fuel companies for the same limited supply. When demand increases and supply cannot keep up, prices skyrocket immediately. And this is a basic economic fact that few people realize. I learned a stockpiling tip from a Montana farmer. Buy oil in small containers rather than large jugs, because once opened, oil will quickly degrade when exposed to air. It's better to have 8 16-oz bottles rather than 2 large containers, which are easier to store and can be redeemed in times of crisis, turning them into real currency. In a prolonged emergency, cooking oil becomes a true emergency calorie, the difference between staying strong and being vulnerable. Just 1 tablespoon of oil provides 120 calories of pure energy, and when food is scarce, those calories can make the difference between staying strong or being exhausted. I've used a smart saving tip. Stock up on oil during warehouse sales. Last month, I bought a year's supply of coconut oil at Costco, which was significantly cheaper than the supermarket. And even with a 25% price increase, I still saved hundreds of dollars. But the most amazing thing is the survival potential of these oils. Coconut oil is not only used for cooking, but also acts as a natural antibiotic, healing cuts when there is no medicine, while avocado oil prevents skin from cracking in harsh weather. In times when things are scarce and unpredictable, these oils are no longer ordinary food. They are survival weapons, protecting your body, health, and energy, as anyone who is smartly prepared knows. Both cooking oil and cotton balls can be used as emergency fire starters. They burn for longer than 5 minutes, enough time to start a fire and stay warm or cook in a survival situation. But if you think that the most important food supply is only meat and canned protein, then I'm going to surprise you. Dried beans and legumes are the real treasure trove that most people completely overlook. Most people think of beans as just a cheap snack, but in fact, the bean market is worth $7.69 billion and is growing at a steady 4 to 5% per year, while few people pay attention. What made my jaw drop was a recent study. Scientists tested 30-year-old beans found in ancient archives, and they were still perfectly edible. But what's even more amazing is that modern research shows that when stored properly, beans can not only last for decades, but can also accumulate some nutrients over time. Bean prices have increased by 137% since 1997, and the trend continues. Why? Because demand for plant-based protein is booming, farmers are growing fewer beans. A Civil Eats investigation found that many farmers are prioritizing corn and soybeans over beans, as commodity prices are at record highs. This means that bean supplies are shrinking as demand soars, creating a market shock that most people are completely unaware of. I recently worked with a nutritionist from FEMA's disaster relief program, and she revealed a key secret. During times of economic stress, your body burns protein faster because stress breaks down muscle mass. A cup of black beans provides the same amount of protein as 3 eggs, but costs 85% less and can be stored for up to 30 years, instead of weeks like fresh produce. But most people make the mistake of thinking that all beans are the same. Each bean offers its own survival benefits. Black beans are rich in antioxidants, which are important for staying healthy when healthcare costs are skyrocketing. Red lentils take just 15 minutes to cook, saving precious fuel. Chickpeas are on the rise thanks to the hummus craze. And pinto beans are incredibly versatile, adding to any dish. One money-saving tip I learned that will save you up to 200%. Buy beans from bulk containers rather than pre-packaged ones. Last week I compared. Bulk beans cost $1.50/pound, while premium packaged beans of the same product cost up to $4.50. That's 200% more just for the packaging, which you'll throw away. And finally, my go-to storage tip for saving your stash. Transfer beans to an airtight container with a few bay leaves. These little leaves will help prevent weevils from destroying months of your hard work. I learned this lesson the hard way when I lost 22 kilos of beans due to poor storage. But when applied correctly, you can not only preserve your food, but also protect your nutritional and economic assets in any emergency. The dried bean market is expected to reach $10 billion by 2030, thanks to the vegan trend and protein alternatives. But smart preppers don't see beans as just a cheap survival food. They see them as the future of affordable nutrition, a soft gold that everyone needs when things get expensive and uncertain. A friend of mine who lived through the 2001 Argentine economic crisis told me that beans were worth more than money. Why? Because money was worthless, but people still needed protein to survive. He traded beans for medicine, tools, and even helped a neighbor fix his roof for a 20-pound bag of lentils. Here's a tip from food scientists at UC Davis. Mix up your stockpile. Black beans provide antioxidants, which can help protect your health when medical costs are high. Red lentils cook quickly, saving precious fuel. Chickpeas are incredibly versatile, adding to a wide variety of dishes. Not only does this ensure complete nutrition, it can also help prevent food loss when you're living off your food reserves during a prolonged crisis. A quick reality check. At current growth rates, the price of beans could double by 2030. Investing just $50 in bulk beans today could feed your family for months and save hundreds of dollars in future prices. But don't forget, beans are only part of the picture. When it comes to food supplies, there's one essential item that many people completely overlook: salt and its preservatives. Salt isn't just for seasoning. It's a survival tool that helps preserve food, prolongs the life of proteins and vegetables, and can even save you if your refrigeration or freezer fails. More than just a seasoning, salt is the basis for survival in tough times, and most people never realize it. The amazing thing is that pure salt never actually expires. We're talking thousands of years. But in 2025, the price of salt skyrocketed 3.5% due to rising energy costs and transportation issues, and there are signs of a serious supply crunch. Last month alone, American Rock Salt, the largest producer of rock salt in the United States, announced that it had produced 2.1 million tons this winter alone, compared to 1.8 million tons for the entire 2024 season. It is operating at 125% capacity and is warning of a potential shortage. When extreme weather creates both huge demand and production disruptions, you can immediately see why salt has become the most important survival item you can own. I spent a weekend with a traditional food preservation expert in Vermont, and she told me something that absolutely blew my mind. Salt is nature's refrigerator. Before electricity, humans preserved meat for months with salt alone. When electricity is erratic or energy prices are high, preserving food with salt can be the difference between eating protein and losing it to spoilage. This is a fact that most people completely ignore, and it is this knowledge that will save your life in times of crisis. But not all salts are the same. Sea salt contains trace minerals that are essential for the body when diet is limited. Himalayan pink salt has the longest shelf life and the best preserving properties. Cheap table salt is effective for basic preservation, while kosher salt is perfect for marinating meats and vegetables. These are facts that only the most prepared know and use to protect their food supply. One tip that most people ignore is to distribute salt in many places instead of keeping it all in one place. I keep salt in 5 different places around my house. If you lose your salt to a flood, fire, or theft, you are in big trouble. This is not only a survival tip, but also a smart economic initiative, protecting your family and finances in difficult times. Salt is more than just a seasoning, more than just a preservative. It's a life preserver. And when you know the secret, you've got an advantage that most people will never have. Salt is more than just a seasoning. It's been used as currency for thousands of years. The word salary comes from Roman soldiers being paid in salt. Even in times of economic collapse, when paper money became worthless, salt retained its value because it was essential for survival. I learned a little trick from a pioneering historical reenactor. Make a salt preserver. Mix salt with herbs and spices to create things like garlic salt, herb salt, and spice salt. This not only preserves food better, but also makes survival food really tasty. In tough times, morale is more important than ever, and a bland meal can quickly ruin your mood and mental health. There are many things about the salt market that most people don't know. Raw salt production is declining due to extreme weather conditions, while demand from the chemical industry is skyrocketing. Additionally, the United States relies on imports for about 25% of its salt supply, making us vulnerable to tariffs and international supply disruptions. In this environment, having salt at a real value is more important than ever. A 50-pound bag of salt costs less than $25, lasts for years, and even with hyperinflation, salt retains its value because your body can't survive without it. In times of stress, when you're doing more physical labor, salt is even more important because it helps maintain electrolyte balance and overall health. One pro tip I learned is to keep your salt in an airtight container with a tight-fitting lid. Moisture is the only enemy of salt, but if stored properly, it will last longer than your children. I use a Gamma airtight container, a small investment for this most important item. And here's the final tip. Learn basic salting and preserving techniques now. Salting meat, vegetables, and fish isn't too difficult, but it does take practice. Start experimenting with fresh produce while you still have options. When grocery stores become unreliable, these skills will be invaluable in protecting your family's food supply and staying healthy in any situation. Finally, Let's talk about nature's ultimate survival food, honey and natural sweeteners. What I'm about to reveal will blow your mind, because this ancient liquid gold is becoming more valuable than real gold during the economic downturn. Archaeologists have found 3,000-year-old honey in Egyptian tombs, and the amazing thing is that it's still perfectly edible. Even after millennia, honey remains clear, sweet, and safe. But while history has proven honey to be nature's immortal gift, we're currently facing an urgent crisis that's barely mentioned in the media. The world's honeybee population is collapsing. Scientists at Washington State University have just announced that bee colonies could decline by 70% by 2025. That 70% isn't a typo, it's downright terrifying. Let me tell you the story from the inside. Last week, I spoke to Tom, a third-generation commercial beekeeper in California who manages 2,000 hives. He was sobbing on the phone as he described how he had found 800 dead hives overnight. "This is not a normal winter die-off," Tom said, choking back tears. "We're seeing a sudden loss of 60 to 100% across the entire farm. Beekeepers who have been in the business for 40 years are going bankrupt overnight. The financial toll is staggering. Each dead hive means a loss of about $200, $300 in investment, not to mention years of honey production." But what makes this crisis truly terrifying is the importance of bees to the global food supply. Honeybees don't just make honey. They pollinate 35% of the world's food crops, from almonds, apples, strawberries, avocados, blueberries to cucumbers, and dozens more. As bees decline, so does food production. The crisis has already begun to have a direct impact on prices. Honey prices are up 20% this year and are expected to rise another 20% by mid-2025. But this is just the beginning. In California, beehive theft has increased 87% since 2013, with 10,000 hives stolen, worth more than $3.5 million. Imagine, beehives are now so valuable that organized crime is hunting them like luxury cars. Honey is more than food, more than energy. It is liquid gold, a survival asset, the lifeblood of a host of the world's most important crops. In a world where bee populations are collapsing and honey prices are skyrocketing, the smart storage, and use of honey will become a valuable life skill, perhaps even a survival factor. During almond pollination season, each hive can fetch up to $18,530, making them an attractive target for thieves who can resell them across state lines. But it is this value that makes honey liquid gold in times of crisis. It is more than just food. Honey is a medicine, a preservative, a disinfectant, a source of energy, and a currency, all wrapped into one magical substance. A food scientist at UC Davis has shown that natural honey contains hydrogen peroxide and extremely low moisture content, which makes it impossible for bacteria to survive. In other words, it is a natural antibiotic that never expires and actually gets stronger with age. Jake, a rescue doctor who fought Hurricane Katrina, said that when hospitals were flooded and supplies were running low, honey became a savior for infected wounds, burns, and cuts, sometimes more effective than antiseptic solutions in the medical kit. Today, modern medical research proves that medical-grade honey can treat drug-resistant infections that conventional medicine cannot. If you want to use honey for survival, remember, raw honey has the longest shelf life and the strongest antibacterial properties because it has not been heat-treated. Manuka honey from New Zealand is extremely expensive but has high medical effectiveness, worth it in an emergency. Clover honey is affordable, easy to find, ideal for everyday use and food preservation. And local honey not only reduces seasonal allergies but also supports the local economy before the supply chain collapses. An important tip: always store honey in glass jars, never plastic. Glass prevents moisture from entering, limiting unwanted crystallization. If honey crystallizes, simply soak it in warm water and it will return to its liquid yellow state. In fact, crystallization is a sign of pure, high-quality honey. What many people overlook is the economic and survival value of honey. Unlike most foods, honey becomes more valuable during a crisis. It provides instant energy, glucose that helps the brain function and maintains physical endurance. Honey also aids in medical care, from treating infections, wounds to digestive problems. and has cultural and spiritual value, and can become a unit of exchange when traditional currencies collapse. A survival tip from a nutritionist: combine honey with salt and apple cider vinegar to create a natural preservative. You can use it to preserve fruits, vegetables, and even meat without the need for refrigeration or modern equipment. This is a natural food laboratory right in your kitchen, and it can be the difference between sanity and confusion in a crisis. Honey also provides a quick energy boost to the brain, thanks to natural sugars, glucose and fructose, that cross the blood-brain barrier faster than refined sugar, helping you stay alert and make better decisions when stressed. Research has also shown that consuming honey can improve memory and cognitive function during periods of high stress. With global bee populations plummeting, honey prices could double or triple in the next few years. Investing $100 in quality honey today could pay off handsomely, providing food, medicine, and peace of mind for years to come. If you find and build relationships with local beekeepers, they often include beeswax or sell it at cost, which is great for preserving, candle making, leather care, and a host of other survival applications. They are also a living source of knowledge about food and natural medicine. It's important to understand that honey isn't just a sweet treat. It's liquid life insurance, never expiring, and all the more valuable in a world of chaos. It's one of the few investments that's both delicious and increases in value over time, and could save your life one day. Honey is an instant source of energy for the brain during high-stress situations. When the economy is down, the ability to think clearly, make quick decisions, and maintain mental stamina is vital. The natural sugars in honey, glucose and fructose, reach the brain faster than refined sugar, providing instant clarity when you need it most. Studies show that consuming honey improves memory and cognitive function even during times of high stress. Currently, the bee population is in an unprecedented decline, and global honey production is also decreasing. This means that honey prices could double, triple, or quadruple in just 2 years. A $100 investment in quality honey today could be worth up to $300,000 in the future, providing nutrition, medicine, and peace of mind for years to come. This return is far superior to most other stock investments, and importantly, you can use the honey directly when you need it, without having to wait for it to be resold. A great survival tip: if you find and build relationships with local beekeepers, do it now. They often give away free or cost-effective beeswax, which is extremely useful for waterproofing, making candles for emergency lighting, preserving leather, and a host of other survival applications. Furthermore, these beekeepers are living encyclopedias, with deep knowledge of food preservation, natural medicine, and sustainable living. The bottom line is that honey is more than just a sweet treat. It is liquid life insurance, never expires, and is all the more valuable in times of chaos. It provides nutrition, medicine, and commercial value when the modern system collapses. It's one of the few investments that tastes good, appreciates over time, and could very well save your life one day. I'm not trying to scare you, but the economic signs are clear. Tariffs are higher than they've been since 1933. Hidden inflation in the cost of production will soon hit consumers, and supply chains are more fragile than ever. Smart investors don't wait for a crisis to hit. They prepare now while goods are still available and affordable. The 6 foundational food items you should stock up on are rice and grains, canned protein, cooking oil, dried beans, salt, and honey. This isn't panic buying, but having enough to stay on top of things and avoid panic buying when people suddenly realize what's happening. Finally, here's a storage tip that most people overlook. Create a digital inventory system. Use your phone to keep track of purchase dates, expiration dates, and storage locations. Rotate your inventory regularly so you always use the oldest items first. The best stockpile is the one you actually use. If this video has helped you better understand how to prepare and what's coming up, please like and subscribe for more financial prepping content. Leave a comment telling me what foods you're stocking up on first. I read every comment and learned from this amazing